Alright guys, this is the Lunar Observer. Welcome to episode 15. Oh my goodness. An unscheduled podcast about fans discussing Insomniac games, and we're not going to go through the rest of the spiel. We're just going to dive straight into the news. And what's today's topic?
It is the Mega March the Mega March Media Madness Big Blowout Bonanza.
So kebabs, that's a lot of alliteration.
Yes, it is. It's sort of expanded as I was doing the in-depths, and I added more and more to it. So we'll just jump straight into the first topic. What we have here is a list of all the things that I felt were notable from all of the playthroughs that weren't really those sort of small, interesting details that would be more appropriate for my in-depth videos. This is about general information that we can glean from the videos. As a note, I haven't actually been onto the forums since this happened because I knew that this would be a big task to do all the in-depths, and I still haven't finished. So if there's anything you want to point out Division 10, then feel free to do so. There most likely has been a ton of stuff picked up by other fans that I have not, because that happens all the time.
Yeah, I think your list is pretty exhaustive. From what I saw in the forums, there wasn't too much additionally. If I notice anything, I'll let you know. But you've got a very good eye for detail, and I think you picked up on everything that I found.
Okay, cool. So the first point is probably the most risque point in terms of as much journalistic coverage as the show gets into. An article from Game Informer actually stated the exact context around Quark telling the story of the movie that is presented as a game to us, the players, and sort of why he is telling the story to anybody in the first place.
So why is it?
Should I mention it? Because Insomniac have been pretty... they're putting in a fair bit of effort to basically make sure that nothing from before the second level is shown to the public.
Yeah, I would agree. The games... Is it GameSpot? Yeah, it's or The Verge. One of those two went into slightly more detail. So we suggest
Game Informer.
It's Game Informer. Yeah, Game Informer has that, and it's linked on Insomniac's site, so if you want to read a little bit more and maybe spoil yourself a little bit, go check it out there, but we're not going to cover it here. Since it's something that happens before the videos that have been up online, and again, those videos are Novalis to Rilgar, we're not going to touch on it. But it's a pretty cool little detail, and go check out that article if you'd like to read more.
Yeah, the reason why that particular context hasn't been mentioned is because it gives away stuff that happens in the story itself. Because obviously, if Quark is telling the story of the movie, then it is one of those in medias res situations where Quark is telling the story after having experienced it himself. But the situation in which he tells the story kind of gives away stuff that happens in the movie in a non-direct manner. So that is probably why Insomniac doesn't want many people to know about it.
Yeah, I would say it kind of delves into spoiler territory, so read that article at your own risk.
Yeah. So now that we've covered that particular section, unless you had something to say and I just interrupted you again.
No, I don't. I was going to be moving on to stuff directly from the videos.
Okay, so do we do the leapfrog thing now, or do I just go on to B, since A was sort of more of a brisk through?
I'll take B.
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Yeah, the Game Reactor article suggests that the game is only using movie cutscenes as a temporary measure. Discuss. Huh?
Yeah, I found that item to be very interesting. Often with articles and whatnot, particularly with Ratchet and Clank, I find, because where articles often state information that is, it's minor information, but it is information that is correct nonetheless. So, for example, I've seen many articles over the years sort of state Ratchet and Clank has this new weapon upgrading feature and a new Raritanium mod system, when those are features that we've had in previous games already.
Yeah, I mean, they've been slightly altered. So Raritanium and, say, Tools of Destruction and Raritanium in Into the Nexus are very different.
Yeah, but it is presented as being brand new, this has never been in the games before sort of deal by, journalists who, they cover a lot of games, just aren't aware that it has been in the games before.
Yeah, so, I mean, is this the particular system new? Sure. Is the idea of it new? No. And
yeah,
the Game Reactor article, what's interesting about that is that Insomniac has mentioned that there's over an hour of cutscenes in the game, including movie scenes. So
yeah, which is necessary because at certain points, the two versions of telling the story cross over a lot of the time, and it would just be easier for Insomniac to use footage from the movie that is done effectively by somebody else than to recreate that scene themselves, which is why this point is so interesting to me.
Yeah, so when we get the final game, is there going to be any movie footage in it?
I don't know. I mean, personally, I would hope so, because that would sort of, when you're playing the game, that suggests, okay, they are telling the same story. One is slightly different, but also hugely expanded, and they are the same story.
Yeah, so I'm curious to see how that plays out, or if they were misinformed. But again, that article is there. You can check that out in the same way that you can check out the Game Informer article from the last point.
Yeah. As I believe I mentioned earlier in this episode, or the episode before, I honestly can't remember. It's been a while at this point of recording. I would almost be happy if Insomniac did the cutscenes themselves in a way, because I find the animation and the visual presentation and aesthetics of the game to be much more appealing than in the movie.
Yeah, I'm really impressed with how the game looks and what we've actually played. It's very fluid. It does the whole plays like a Pixar movie analogy. Yeah, that people have been
well,
mentioning.
it doesn't just play like a Pixar movie, it watches like a Pixar movie as well in cutscenes.
It does. It's just so pretty.
Yeah, in the Kerwan demo, I'm not sure if you've watched this, the Polygon playthrough actually did the entire Kerwan level. GameSpot actually stopped just before the fitness course at the end, but as part of the opening cutscene for that fitness course, you see like a fully animated cutscene for Ratchet being led to the fitness course by Brax, and both characters are animated stupendously well. And it is really jarring to go to that, well, not jarring, it is jarring in a positive way to go to that from movie footage where the animation is, it's pretty good, but it's not sublime.
Yeah, there's just so much character in the game animations.
Yeah. So in a way, I would be happy for some movie cutscenes to be recreated in the game, and that would also cover over some discrepancies. Like in the movie, the Metropolis scene seems to take place either in early morning or in the late afternoon, but in the game, it is definitely in the middle of the afternoon because the lighting is different.
Yeah, again, they're telling roughly the same stories from two very, very different perspectives.
Yeah, the movie will be, this is how it happened, and the game is Quark trying to recount the plot as best he can. So the same Game Reactor article mentioned that there will be several new bosses. What could they be?
I hope Victor's a boss.
Yeah, I would imagine that he would be a boss as well, because Clank runs away from him. Um, we've seen this in screenshots. Clank runs away from him seemingly during his escape from the Warbot factory, and we know that he and Clank will have another encounter on the Ranger edition of the Starship Phoenix. So I would imagine that at some point Clank will have a final super duper ultra, probably not giant Clank, final boss battle against him.
Man, I would love to see more Giant Clank fights.
Yeah.
That would be so cool. We haven't had Giant Clank since...
Yeah, we haven't really seen Giant Clank since Up Your Arsenal, I believe, in 2004. Unless, actually, if you count Size Matters and Secret Agent Clank. So the last time we would have seen him was 2007.
Yeah, but either way, that's between 12 and 9 years.
Yeah, so still a rather long time.
Yeah. So that would be something I'd love to see return. Now, nothing we've seen so far has shown that it's there, but we haven't seen any late game stuff, and I'd love to see that happen again.
Yeah, Giant Clank on PS4 would certainly lend itself to something like, War of the Monsters, almost, sort of giant destruction sequences. But in a way, I can understand actually why Insomniac have, quote-unquote, well, they haven't written Giant Clank out, but they've certainly shied away from that particular aspect of Clank, because having a pad that turns Clank into a giant robotic super-killing death machine kind of breaks the story. And it also goes against Clank's character. That's part of the humor that, the super nerd turns into a robotic version of the Incredible Hulk without the anger or comprehension issues. But it is also... I really like what we've seen of the Clank gameplay in that lava facility thing that we saw last year, as well as the time pad gameplay from A Crack in Time, because it suits Clank's character way more.
Yeah, it's very thoughtful. Now, in this new one, we saw in the lava gameplay, and I'm gonna call it not Gaspar, just for the sake of giving us, instead of saying lava gameplay every time, because that's the feeling I'm getting from it. It's probably not on Gaspar, but until we find out where it is, it's a good proxy. He does still use explosives. He has those bombs he can throw, but it's very deliberate and thoughtful, and it's more about throwing the robots around and figuring out where they need to go and how they need to be placed than it is about running and gunning.
Yeah, and he does have combat, and the bombs help with that, because by being able to chuck bombs, that effectively gives him a ranged attack that isn't rebounding shots like in A Crack in Time with the Chronoceptor. But the bombs would also be used as a puzzle-solving element, and say clearing out grates, which is similar to, if you remember, to Blackwater City, or a couple of days ago for the new Blackwater City. One of the puzzle elements that you can encounter in the sewers is you raise up the water level of a reservoir, then you dive down, go through the pipe, and oh crap, there's some grating in the way. And the puzzle is figuring out how to get rid of the grating, and that's draining the water and smacking it with your wrench. So that kind of puzzle solving of using explosives to clear it away is also implemented with the bombs that Clank can pick up, for example. So bosses, what else could they be, do you think?
Well, Victor was that original boss in the original game that was unnamed that ended up not getting used. I'm trying to think of other mini or side bosses from the original games. The mathematician would be hilarious, but not gonna happen.
Actually, Nefarious would count as a new boss, because he was never in the original game.
That is true, and he's definitely going to be a confrontation at some point. I mean, they're touting him up there with the rest of the original cast. He's one of the four.
Yeah, he is. So
I
a confrontation
wonder.
with Nefarious in that circular area where Ratchet swings shots around, that would be very reminiscent of the Nefarious
A
Space
crack in
Station
time.
boss fight, which was
Yeah.
basically in this very similar arena on a larger scale.
Yeah, it was. That was that giant hover booting arena.
Yeah. So that's two new bosses, and and since it's plural, that would literally count as to what was mentioned.
I wonder if Helga's in this.
If you've looked at the Kerwan footage, Helga is not in the fitness course.
No, she's not. That's why I'm curious.
What, are you suggesting she's a boss?
I mean, she could, if she's maybe, say, an assistant for the Rangers and testing Ratchet's metal at some point, that could be a boss fight. It doesn't necessarily have to be with an enemy.
I guess. How the game presents it is the training portion of Ratchet, which we know of because it's been heavily alluded to in trailers and stuff, is summed up in the movie. In the movie, it is him trying out weapons. In the game, they skip over him trying out weapons because that draws attention away from the plot hole that we've mentioned before of Ratchet somehow not being able to use weapons he's used to get to this point anymore. Instead, his training is the fitness course, and then we're right back into going to the next level. So that is the extent of his crash course ranger training.
Still, I mean, Big Al is in the game, so it wouldn't surprise me if some of the other characters were in it in a different manner.
Yeah, and Big Al's role very much seems to be sort of collating together all of the RoboShack store owners into effectively one character in Al, who keeps showing up from time to time. We've seen him on Pokitaru. We now see the first encounter on Kerwan, and he gives Ratchet the gameplay upgrades with Clank, like the the helipack, for example, or well, what does he give? What did he give Ratchet on Pokitaru again? Did we ever see that?
Yeah, we did. He gives him ship upgrades.
Oh yes, of course. So that's what Al does.
Yeah. So he's randomly new mechanic guy, gameplay mechanic guy.
So yeah, that would be Al's role. For Helga, no, that's spoilers. To mention that. Well, not spoil. It's not literally spoilers, but it is information that hasn't been publicly revealed unless you've read the novels, so I'm not going to mention it. But it's very early and very inconsequential, that's all I'll say. That there is a spot early in the story that is the only place I can imagine that Helga would show up.
If she were in there, I could see her as a mini boss. I mean, she was sort of a mini boss in the third game. You don't have to be an enemy to be a mini boss. She was the one who made him do the virtual fitness course and then set him up on those the holodeck.
Yeah, but I don't count that as a boss. To me, a boss is a direct boss battle in the same vein as, say, the Snagglebeast fight on BTS that we've seen before, a direct confrontation. Helga more issues a challenge that gets in the player's way that they have to complete before moving on, and I don't really count that as a boss battle.
Well, speaking of Snagglebeast, the Snagglebeast fights back, but we all knew that already. Do they consider that a new boss?
No. I wouldn't count it as a new boss. I mean, mechanically it would be a new boss because he is using a lot of new mechanics, but then a lot of those mechanics are taken from the Wargrok fight from A Crack in Time, because the Snagglebeast is now much more Wargrok-like. He is ape in design rather than a giant troll like in the first game.
Yeah, the design is different. The way that you, having done the fight at GameStop, the way that you fight him seems different.
Yeah, he's no longer slow and plodding.
No, he's not. He's very fast. He's got area of effect attacks. In the old game, the floor would start to fall out under you, and that doesn't happen anymore. So the way that you deal with the fight is different.
Yeah, and as I said, that is a replacement for the original Alien Queen boss fight that ended BTS. Because, Umbrus and BTS have been combined into one world. I'm wondering if the Telepathopus would be... Well, I know that there are multiple of them on Gaspar, but we also have the Telepathopus fight on Pokitaru that we know about, so that's 3.
We do. Yeah, sure. There was that side fight on Pokitaru that we actually got to... Well, we being Kebabs, fought, and defeated on the side path where the Gold Bolt used to be.
Correct, but I'm also referring to the... it looked like the same one, but we depleted its health every time and killed it every time, but... the multiple telepathopi that blocked our path on the main Pokitaru route as well. I would consider those sort of mini-boss fights that together form one because you have to fight them.
Yeah, it's a bunch of smaller fights. None of the individual fights are difficult, but running out of ammo becomes a real problem.
Yeah, and as explained in the in-depth, that seemed to be a very common occurrence for the various folks who were playing the game.
Yeah, so I don't really have anything else to say on this point. What about you? Do you want to move on?
Yeah, I want to move on. The next point is, I know this is technically yours, but you have your topic through the leapfrog thing. But we were able to see the Holocards menus, and through looking at all of the Let's Plays, I was able to construct how Holocards work. So I feel like I would be the best person to sort of explain this particular point.
Yeah, I think you should, because you've really broken down the Holocard aspect. And the only thing I'm going to say about this before you dive into it is I think this is what's replacing skill points, to be honest with you. I don't think skill points are going to be coming back because we have trophies.
I don't think Holocards replace skill points. I think trophies replace skill points. Because mechanically, trophies and skill points are identical. It's just that skill points unlocked things in the game, but gold bolts do that for the PS4 title. This
is true.
All of the unlocks in the extras menu are through gold bolts, which gives much more value to them.
Yeah, in the original PS3 games, at first gold bolts gave you basically the quote unquote Omega weapons. They gave you the gold weapons. In the second game, they gave you upgrades to your weapons. In the third game onwards, the mods. Third game onwards, gold bolts gave you skin options.
Skin unlocks. Except for Deadlocked, where there were no gold bolts, which was hilarious because I remember when I was first getting Deadlocked, I'm like, okay, I've used guides for the first 3 games. For Deadlocked, I am not going to use guides. I'm going to find all the gold bolts by myself. That turned out to be way easier than I originally thought it would be.
Yes, because the total number of gold bolts are 0. But there are a lot more skill points in that game. I think of all the Ratchet & Clank games, Deadlocked has the most skill points.
Yes, it does, because skill points are now not really difficult and obscure tasks. It is, say, kill 15 enemies with this particular weapon. Okay, kill 20 enemies with this particular weapon without getting hit. They're all like small side tasks.
Yeah. Some of them are easier than others. I know that there is one where you have to beat Ace without taking a hit.
Yeah, that one's tricky, but
yeah.
Not impossible. So, let's get into how the Holocards work. Basically, Holocards are an alternative to Raritanium. They are spawned in the same way because you collect them by killing enemies, and their likelihood of spawning can actually be increased with Raritanium mods. After you defeat an enemy, a Holocard pops out and flies towards you, very similar to Raritanium. Although what I'm realizing now actually is that Holocards have no pickup distance. As soon as they spawn, they fly over to you as if you've already collected them. So they're an automatic collect.
Yeah, so it's not like bolts where you could accidentally leave one behind.
Yeah, or Raritanium, that was like that as well. And the cards come in 3 themes: locations, characters, and weapons, or at least the ones that I was able to see. They are in the Holocard menu, in the pause menu. They are sorted into categories like Veldin, Navalis, and Iridia, Hero Set, Girl Power, and Robots, as well as weapons like Fusion Grenade, Combustor, Porositor, Proton Drum, and whatnot. And multiple different categories, well, a lot of categories have different card types. So for example, Navalis has 2 locations, the crater and the waterworks, and 1 character, the plumber. Iridia has the what was it called? The McMurk Sports Shack, and the area with the Sand Sharks and Skid Big Marks as part of its trio. But obviously some are exclusive to weapons. So for example, Combustor has 3 weapons in it, and Girl Power has 3 characters in it. Now, each card can be highlighted and flipped over to read about some trivia and the subject's first appearance, as well as the location and system for location cards. For weapon cards, it shows the manufacturer and the weapon class, and that is important because a lot of the weapon cards feature weapons that aren't even in the PS4 game. These are acting very much like the trophies that you can unlock in Super Smash Bros., where they give you a history lesson. So one of the Combustor cards is actually the Dual Vipers from Deadlocked, and when you flip it over, it will tell you that it was manufactured by Pox Industries.
Vox.
Yeah, Vox. Sorry, I'm used to Pox because I played Gladiator all my life, and that's what it's called.
Oh, right. Yes, it was changed from Vox to Pox because there is actually a Vox Telecom in somewhere in Europe. I don't remember what country.
Yeah,
And
luckily the HD version of Deadlocked is literally a port of Gladiator with the logos changed. So it is the US version effectively. So yeah, that is very cool that the cards are providing a history lesson. As another example, the Girl Power set of cards has 2 of the cards that I've seen unlocked in the Let's Plays are Angela Cross and Talwyn Apogee.
Which is amazing and wonderful, and I'm glad that they're including them.
Yes, so am I. So when you collect a full set of 3 cards, that will actually unlock a perk. So for example, if you complete the Veldin set, your Holocard drops will increase by 5%. Navalis will increase Veritanium drops by 5%, and if you complete the Omni-Wrench trio, your wrench damage will be doubled.
So it's like getting the new wrenches in Going Commando.
Yeah, except it's completely random, because the card you pick up is mostly random. You can't pick up cards for a weapon set that you haven't bought yet. So if you don't buy the Porositor, you will not actually pick up any of the Porositor trio card set.
However, you can trade in cards that you already have for ones you don't.
Yes, if you have 5 duplicates of a card that you already have, then you can select a card that you have not collected from any set and trade them in for one of that new card, which will make it easier to collect a full set, and sort of eases the pain of the fact that ultimately the cards that you pick up will be random with an expanding range as you visit new worlds and meet new people and pick up new weapons and stuff like that. Also, what's notable is that if you complete a weapon set of cards, it will then allow you to purchase the Omega version of that weapon when you flip over to challenge mode. So that is very important.
Yeah, that's so you also not only have to max out its do you have to max out its level, or can you automatically just purchase Omega on the second playthrough?
I would imagine you would have to max out the level as well. We will ultimately not know until we get over to challenge mode, or Video or Beast chimes up on the forums about it. Now,
in addition to that, do those cards roll over into challenge mode? If you say don't complete a set, do you get to keep your cards?
I would imagine so, because ultimately you need a completed trio of weapon cards to get the Omega weapon in challenge mode. So it would be awful if those cards were removed. It's like, ha! You have to collect them again in challenge mode because we got rid of them. Ha 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 ha.
Yeah, I could see them in addition to say bolts and your weapons and most gadgets that you have, not all of them. I could see the cards carrying over from game to game.
Yeah. And again, that would make it easier, especially because by the end of the game, your holocard pickup rate will be much higher. As another note, this is part of Raritanium mods, which I haven't covered, but it is still, I think, worth noting. You know how you can get Raritanium mods to increase your Raritanium pickup?
Yeah.
You can have weapons that have mods to increase your holocard pickup, but no weapon will actually spawn both currencies at the same time. It is either or.
So if you kill an enemy, it's going to give you either Raritanium as a bonus or a card.
Yeah, if it drops something for you in the first place, because as seasoned Ratchet & Clank players know, that doesn't happen all the time.
Yeah. Increased probability of pickup does not mean will pick up. I'm trying to remember other... so, like, for example, the Shard Reaper, the bonuses were to increase Raritanium pickup.
Yeah, I
that didn't
always...
mean you get it every time.
Yeah, when I played Tools of Destruction, I often focused on weapons that had the highest amount of Raritanium mods that I could purchase, and then I just used those a lot, because then I could use that Raritanium to make my other weapons even better before I even started using them.
Yeah, it helps a lot.
So, that is how the Holocard system works. Well, there is actually an additional to that, because holocards are not only an alternative to Raritanium, but also an alternative to gold bolt rewards, because in certain levels you can actually pick up holocard packs, which give you 5 completely random holocards.
So in areas where gold bolts might be, like say that fight that we had on Pokitaru where there used to be a gold bolt.
Yeah,
I could see that being...
Yeah, a holocard pack is probably there instead. And actually, you remember the PSX demo where we went behind those 2 secret crate areas and there was nothing there?
Yeah.
In a live stream, I think it was Polygons, they made their way to the back of there and there was a holocard pack there then.
Huh.
Yeah, so that is the reasoning. And that is also the reason why I don't like using the gold bolt count as evidence for the fact that the game has fewer planets, because you know the Navalis secret area where you would go up to the top of the wall jump for a gold bolt when you were through the waterworks?
Yeah.
Well, that is now replaced with a holocard pack, so certain gold bolt locations have also been replaced with holocard packs. So by virtue of that, the gold bolt count is much smaller than it used to be. It's gone down from 40 to 28.
Well, also considering that gold bolts now don't unlock skins. Well, they do. You get skins at what, 15?
You get head replacements at 1 bolt. I'm not sure if... Yeah, you do unlock skins, but I forgot what number it was because I don't have the picture in front of me and I'm not bothered to go grab it at the moment. Yeah, and with gold bolts actually being rarer, that actually means that finding them is therefore much more valuable, and it means that the extras aren't so sort of, oh, another gold bolt, another thing, because you're not getting them that often anymore. So on top of that, there are an extra entirely different set of holocards called Rhino cards.
I wonder what those are. Are they maybe the Rhino? But wait, 9? There've only been 7 Rhino.
Correct, but remember that the combustor set doesn't contain 3 combustors, so I would imagine that they are including the Zodiac and the Harbinger among the list.
Or they could be just including the Harbinger and the new Rhino from this game.
No, I don't think they are, because again, this is a history lesson. And the first holocard that you pick up on Rilgar is the holocard for the original Rhino from Ratchet & Clank 1.
Like automatically? Is that just what you get?
No, you get a holocard of it.
No, I mean like you said that holocards were random.
Yes, I think, well, the first one, it was either a huge coincidence or the Blackwater one is always the same one and the rest are random. Or each one is always a specific holocard, because Rhino holocards are considered to be different. You don't pick them up by killing enemies. You pick them up like we did holoplans.
Oh, so they're basically holoplans in card form.
Yes, they're the new holoplans in the sense that they are exactly the same. Like Ratchet
And
even holds them up like he did in Into the Nexus even.
Huh. So then I could see those being fixed easily.
Yeah. What were you going to ask just then?
I was going to ask, so what's the reward for getting all 9 of them? And also, weren't holoplans always in sets of 9 or 13 for the later games?
I don't know. It was basically there were as many holoplans as Insomniac felt the need to include in the levels. There was usually 1 per on-foot level. Now, this requires a bit of a backstory, and those who have seen or will see the Rilgar in depth will know what I'm talking about. Now, since we have Rilgar, you're probably wondering, what is the route to the sewer through the sewers for? Because we don't need to meet up with Captain Quark anymore.
Yeah, so what is the route through the sewers for?
You go to a new, slightly alternate version of the original Shifty Salesman.
Oh, so Slim Cognito.
No, not Slim Cognito, the Rhino for your robot. Guy.
The Rhino guy. So what does he sell? What is he hawking now? Since he's obviously not hawking the Rhino.
Well, that's why I said he was a new alternate version. This person is very heavily inspired by the Shifty Salesman. They even wear similar trench coats, but the feel is kind of different. He's part of a group who are Rhino fanatics. And they will build you the new Rhino, and it is just called the Rhino. They will build you the Rhino if you get the holoplans for them, the holocards.
Oh, so you have to actually go to him to trade them in.
Yes, exactly. And I just call him like a geek freak or a Rhino freak, just to make sure that he's separate from the Shifty Salesman. Because again, they play off as very similar, but also quite different. So that is who you meet at the end. You also pick up the new Trespasser, which looks like the Infiltrator. Actually, it's an Infiltrator painted gray and red. But mechanically, it's the same as the old Trespasser. We'll see if we get to that. No, I haven't included that as a note, so we'll chuck that in there. But yeah, you actually need the Trespasser to go through the BTS section, because Captain Quark's sort of debriefing video on the BTS mission specifically says, get the Trespasser. So you need to do that route.
Yeah, so it's not optional, even though the Rhino has always been an optional weapon.
Yes. So similar to what the fitness course does, where your reward at the end is a gold bolt, by putting you through that route and introducing the Rhino holocards, the player will always know of their existence. There's no accidentally skipping over it. Yeah, so that's Rhino holocards. I thought that was the most interesting part about holocards.
That is pretty cool. So they're sort of combining the holo plans as well as I wouldn't even say skill points, original gold bolt or even some raritanium bonuses.
Yeah. The normal holocards are actually likened to Constructor mods or Zoni, in that they are an alternative collectible that you can find on top of gold bolts. And I always like that because, side paths in A Crack in Time I felt became much more interesting. Their design didn't really change, but they became more interesting because as you were going through them, you're thinking, "Ooh, I wonder what I'll get next. It's gonna be good." and it will either be a Zoni, in which case you get that cute collecting the Zoni cutscene and progress towards a ship upgrade, or a Constructo mod. And those those are always fun.
Even though Constructo mods fell flat in that there was clearly a better or
option,
worse
rather than an option of preference, but the concept was still very cool, and you're always excited to pick up a new one and see what it was, or just what it looked like.
Yeah, because they all actually physically modified the guns too.
Yeah. So, the last point about Holocards I noticed, well, two. Some of the pictures are wrong.
Wrong?
Yeah. So, the picture for the Rhino from Ratchet & Clank 1 is actually displaying the weapon backwards, so the exhaust is facing the camera instead of the actual barrel, and it's displaying the weapon on its side, as if the handlebar is actually the proper handle. So it's all flopped around wrong. And the OmniWrench 8000 has the complete wrong wrench picture. It's the Quest for Booty Wrench, not the Tools of Destruction one.
And the Quest for Booty Wrench was already switched to the Millennium 12, wasn't it?
Yeah, the Millennium 12 card is basically the Millennium 12 with lightning bolts around it for some reason. I mean, maybe the OmniWrench 8000 in the Movieverse is now a non-kinetic Tether Millennium 12 in appearance, but if so, I don't like that one bit.
I mean, they did such a big deal of making this almost a history lesson, and then...
Yeah, exactly. I mean, dual Vipers is not dual Omni Blasters.
Yeah, they're not the same, and they correctly identified that as the deadlocked weapon.
Yeah, and what confuses me even more is the fact that I have a picture of a promotional render of the OmniWrench 8000 that they could have used on the Holocard. All the pictures are old promotional renders of them. So I just don't understand why the correct picture wasn't used.
I couldn't answer that. Last time I checked, I did not work for Insomniac. Alright, moving on. So, we've talked pretty extensively about the Holocards, including the some of the issues with them, but we're going to be going into now from Holocards to the loading screens, which was another thing people had a lot of questions about. Were they going to be like the original loading screens where the loading screen was actually hidden by you traveling from one planet to another? That is not the case. It's not even galactic trivia like it is in A Crack in Time. Instead, it's a loading wallpaper of the level that you will be going to.
Yeah, basically think the most generic loading screen you can think of, and then, hey, that's the one we'll be using.
I wonder why they went that route. I'm really curious.
I do not know. I mean, I would say it's due to time, but then I just don't know, because we've had Tools of Destruction had them. All of the PS2 games, including Size Matters and Secret Agent Clank, had them. So I don't know why the new game didn't have them. I mean, yeah, I get the fact that they want to display where you're going to next, and you know, put up a little pop-up hint or something, but I don't see why that would be completely incompatible with space montages.
I really don't know why they stopped the space montages. I mean, it could very well be that they actually take up too much processing power, even though they're hiding a loading screen. I don't know. I'm curious.
Yeah, but then why was the PS2 able to do it then?
It's a much lower polygon count for one. I'm curious to know how much processing power it would take to render that with their current hardware, their current graphical specs. Just as a point of curiosity, if nothing else.
Well, In the PS2 games, it was basically the ship model traveling past the camera in a skybox. The only thing that was rendered was the skybox, its trail, and the ship, and nothing else. So it is very... There's not a lot of... the console isn't taxed that much at all during loading screens like that.
Yes, yeah, it's just not something I'm familiar with, so I was deferring to the expert here.
Yeah. I would be curious as well, whether it was a creative choice, we couldn't do this choice, or probably both, most likely.
Probably a little bit of time and money on one hand, and just what would make sense on the PS4 on the other.
Yeah. Again, PS4 loading screens, ship montages could look extremely beautiful if you chucked in, a nebulae or two, just to make it a little bit prettier without putting too much taxation on the system. I think we've exhausted that topic.
Yeah, so why don't we move on to the next one, which is gold bolts. You want to cover that?
Yeah, we've already discussed in the Holocards section that there are gold bolts and that you can use them for extras, but this will dive into what I was able to see that you could spend on specifically. You can spend them on in the extras menu. Everything in the extras menu is unlocked via gold bolts, so if you pick up one, you are most likely going to be unlocking something, especially as there's only 28 of them. You have a gallery section, which is artwork for characters, weapons, environments, and original concept art from the original game.
Which is pretty sweet.
Yeah, and also probably a bit of a bonus actually, because in the gallery for the PS2 game, it was under the scanline filter that the Ratchet & Clank 1 menu was under. So it didn't look the prettiest, as it could be. There is also an appearance menu which allows you to adjust the screen filter. So, for example, black and white sepia and what was that third one called? Hyper something? No.
The one where all the colors are switched?
The rainbow one, yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember what they call that.
Trippy, but yeah, you get the idea. That one, stuff like that. You can change the style of the bolts. No divulgence as to what that means, but I would imagine that it would allow you to switch between the PS4 system of having bronze, silver, and gold mini bolts for you to collect, the Going Commando Onward style of having just gold colored bolts to collect, or the Ratchet and Clank 1 style of all of them being grey. I would personally just keep it at all of them being grey, because I really like that look.
I do too, but it's a lot more, for me particularly, to have that visual interpretation of what bolts mean.
Yeah, and I think I've deduced now actually why the bolts are multicolored in Ratchet in the new PS4 game to begin with, because it is much harder to pick up a bunch of just grey bolts. But considering that the bolt color that they come out as is random, it is much easier to see a cluster of grey, bronze, and gold bolts collated together on the ground.
Yeah, if let's say you're on a planet like trying to think of a planet that had sort of a bronzes texture, Iridia. So if you're on Iridia or Tabora, Tabora would definitely, but Tabora's not this. Yeah, Tabora's from
Going Commando, but I was giving an example.
Yeah.
I had trouble picking up bolts there too.
Yeah, so if you have a mixture of colors, it's just going to be a lot easier to see at least one of the three possible colors.
Yeah, and that makes it easier to pick up all of them. I suppose the extended bolt pickup range helps as well, because I noticed, and I point this out in the in-depth, the bolt pickup range, at least in the playthrough demo, is as far as the bolt magnetizer was.
I wonder if there's a bolt magnetizer at all this time around, or if they've just simply done away with that.
I would imagine that they've either done away with it, Or it is in the game, but they've turned the effect on for the demo. But I would find that unlikely because everything else about the demo suggested that this was vanilla playthrough from the beginning, as you will in the final game style.
Yeah, it very much looked like they were playing it on whatever easy, medium, or hard, whatever they'd set it up for, as the first time that you play.
Yeah. The other cheats that you can have are putting on a head mask. Now that's a bit of a misnomer because what I would actually call it is head swap. So you can change what Ratchet's head look like. You can make it Victor Von Ions, a Snagglebeast, a T-Rex, or Doctor Nefarious.
I want to be Doctor Nefarious fighting Doctor Nefarious.
Yeah, and you might be thinking, well, what's the point in that? But keep in mind that when you pick up the Ranger armor, with the exception of his tail, giving away that he's a Lombax, Ratchet is covered completely in armor. So having a swapped out head
and
actually
his tail is covered
makes
too.
it look like, with armor, but say Nefarious doesn't have a tail. But aside from that, it makes it look like Victor Von Ion in the Galactic Rangers. There is also a appearance cheat for hiding the HUD if you want that purest experience, or if you want to take really pretty screenshots.
Yeah, that's great for screenshot taking.
Yeah, speaking of which, there doesn't appear to be a photo mode in the game. Which is a shame. I would have really loved one. And there are also options where you can change the paint scheme of Ratchet's Ranger armor and his Class G Star Jumper Galactic Ranger ship.
I'm excited for that because we haven't had paint jobs since A Crack in Time, and I loved painting Aphelion.
Yeah, and before that we didn't have them since Deadlocked, where you had an entire menu of sorry, not Deadlocked, Up Your Arsenal, and Going Commando, where you had like a whole menu of paint schemes to choose from.
Yeah, the first game didn't have paints. The second game didn't either. It was only the third.
It did.
It did.
It did. Slim Cognito Ship Shack, remember?
Oh, right, yes. The second game did have paints, and then the third one did as well. You could paint it directly in the Phoenix.
Yeah. And the last option in the extras menu are cheats, and these are out-and-out cheats. You can adjust the game speed, I'm guessing to be fast or slow, and you can also toggle invincibility and infinite ammo. Fortunately, those last two unlock at 27 and 28 gold bolts, so they are literally the last two things that you will unlock.
Yeah, so 28 gold bolts is the every gold bolt, so basically the reward for finding all of them is an unlimited ammo cheat.
Yeah.
If you want to use it.
Yeah, well, no, the last one is invincibility. Infinite ammo is second to last, which means that you can actually play challenge mode for the first time with those two cheats active the first time you play through them if you were diligent the first time.
Unless it's like some of the games where some contact is just completely locked off for you until you hit challenge mode.
Yeah, it didn't look locked off though in the playthrough. Now the last thing to mention, this is technically its own item, but I'm going to include it in the cheats thing on its own. Dan Johnson's Easter egg was also revealed through the extras menu. He has a head mask that you can unlock at 25 gold bolts.
Now, because it's unlock at X number of gold bolts, you don't spend the gold bolts. You just automatically earn the ability to use or not use that thing at that skill level, right?
Correct, yes. It is unlocked at the certain point, not spend these gold bolts for this item, like, say, Going Commando and the weapon mods from Slim.
I'm trying to remember another game that had it. Deadlocked also. Your
with your
points,
star rankings. Not skill points, it was star rankings. As far as I'm aware, skill points were worthless in Deadlocked. They were just a check mark. Oh, you got bolts for them.
Yeah, you actually got money for doing skills.
Yeah, but I'll be honest, it was a pittance. It was like 500 bolts per skill point. Not that valuable. Although, considering there was like 15, 20 of them per level, I guess it would add up.
Yeah, they did add up. That was the bigger issue. But let's keep moving.
Yeah, the
So,
next item is technically gold bolt count being only 28, but we've already discussed this earlier, so on to the next one.
yeah, so the ordering of end roof stuff is different. We've discussed this before, as you mentioned with Rilgar and what happened when you did the end of the sewers. But Nivalis has it so the mayor sends you to Iridia, not Metropolis. And meanwhile, the plumber fixes your ship.
Yeah, well, technically, the plumber gives, quote unquote, gives you the coordinates to. No, I don't know actually how that will work, because the plumber gives you a video that is clearly a clip from the movie, and he says, "Give this to Captain Quark." But when you get to the ship, Kerwan is already unlocked. And I don't know if that is through the infobot that he gives you, or if you literally need to go to the plumber to get the Kerwan coordinates.
Yeah, that's not made clear. But either way, the other thing the plumber gives you is the ability to leave Nivalis.
Yeah, which was originally the mayor.
Arrive. Yeah.
Yeah, and the reason why they did that, I would imagine, is because logistically, and the fact that you have the sewer pipe slide, it makes a lot more sense and would be easier to have the plumber fix your ship than have the mayor do it for you.
Yeah, because in the original game, the mayor gives you a new ship.
Yeah, the courier ship, as well as the coordinates to Metropolis through the Captain Korgad. Has this ever happened to you?
Happened to you? And then it goes through running out of ammo. But anyway, since you already start
RoboShack, it's Quarktastic.
Tastic. You already start the game with the swing shot. So in Iridia, instead of that, you get the high. Well, actually, at the end of the training course on Kerwan, what do you get in replace of the swing shot?
You get the gold bolt. But the fitness course is mandatory this time on Kerwan. It is the last part of that level.
And then meanwhile in Iridia, instead of getting the Trespasser, you get the Hydra Displacer.
Yeah, and as with the plumber's change, the Hydra Displacer change is actually justified logistically in the story, because the reason why Iridia is infested with enemies... wait, no, that's wrong.
It is. No, the Blarg are there and they left it behind by accident.
Oh, yeah. The reason why the Blargs show up on Iridia is because Skid actually has the plans to the Hydro Harvesters that we see on Pokitaru, and the Hydro Displacer has a visual design that is very similar to the Hydro Harvesters, and so that would make sense as to why it is around in the Sports Shack, because of the fact that the Blarg accidentally left that technology behind. So, really cool justification. I love that sort of stuff.
Yeah, so that was left behind by accident when the Blarg went to get Skid's autograph.
Yeah, and you get the Trespasser from the Rhino Geek Freak because, well, he's a shady guy.
Yeah, so it's really interesting how end route rewards are all shuffled around to more service the plot.
Yeah, for one, that servicing the plot, everything is justified, but it also keeps us old school players on our toes. So like, oh, there wasn't a gold bolt there. Oh, the mayor gives us the coordinates to Iridia because he's Skid's uncle.
Yeah, it's kind of cool how they're related now. They did look pretty similar in the original game, but they didn't quite look like the same species because of their skin coloration.
Yeah.
The mayor being a bluish alien and Skid being very bright green. Did he have tiny antennae in the original? I'm pretty sure he did. His manager did.
No, he didn't.
No? Okay.
But to be fair, skin color is something that is different amongst many humans as well.
This is true, of course. But they didn't. Their facial structure also looked quite different.
Yes. Again, I'm just going to point out that humans as well have that, and we are in a cartoony alien setting, so there's a little bit of artistic license, I think, that they have with that.
Yeah, that
Like,
they're
say,
now related.
female Lombax is not having a tail.
Yeah, that just see that's a little different in that it doesn't make physical sense for a pheloid type creature to suddenly not have one because then you're off balance. But anyway,
Yes,
speaking
onto
of
the
the
next
trespasser
subject.
being on the
This
speaking
is
of the
mine.
Oh, sorry.
Yes, thank you. Now, this listing I originally put down as the Trespasser has been confirmed by GameSpot, but since then, the Polygon playthrough actually acquired the Trespasser and used it in gameplay.
So you said it's identical to the original trespasser. Still
Yes, it
the
is.
same.
The visuals are now very, very different. It is almost Tron-like in its appearance. But the actual gameplay mechanics are exactly the same. You have lasers being projected from points on a set of 3 circular rings, and the lasers need to point into receptors at the very edge of the rings without interrupting each other, and when all of them are lit green, the door opens. It is exactly the same as in Ratchet & Clank 1.
Just with a new skin.
Yeah, it looks very, very different. So I've just sent Division 10 a collage of images relating to the Trespasser. She hasn't seen the Wilgar stuff yet because she didn't do the in-depth with me. I did that by myself, so this is going to be her raw reaction to the stuff.
Well, for one, the trespasser is gigantic.
Yeah, and as I said, it looks like the Infiltrator now.
Yeah, it does, except that it is silver with red detailing. And a lot more blue glowy parts.
Yeah, but that's to be expected these days.
So, looking at the screen, okay, so you get this little pop-up screen.
Yeah, that is like the original Infiltrator and the electrolyzer where the camera zooms in onto the display panel.
The visuals for it are much, much simpler and clearer this time around.
Yeah, it should be much easier to figure out what you're supposed to be doing.
Almost a little bit too simplistic, but I appreciate the function over form. I'm getting a very space chem feel from this, both in the fact that you're moving items around on a grid to solve a puzzle, and also the aesthetic view of a lot of glowing lines and spinning things. Space chem is all about moving things around in very large grid circles to build chemicals like water or salt by combining molecules on a grid.
I've never played that game, so I'm going to have to take your word for it. I do agree that it might actually look a little bit too simple. The thin line encompassing the outside of the playing field, as it were, I think is a little bit too vague. It doesn't feel like the end of the course. Also, the fact that the red beam shoots beyond the border of the playing course, I think, is also a bit confusing.
I would not be surprised if someone were a little bit confused by that at first. Sorry. It's getting quite late in my time zone. But I think it's a lot easier and cleaner than the original version of it, personally.
Yeah, the original was almost a bit too detailed, and I guess it didn't help that it was displayed over existing gameplay, because then the visual UI of the Trespasser was clashing with what was behind you. What was behind it.
Yeah, by having this have a more opaque background, it does make it a lot easier to see.
Yeah, and concentrate on what you're doing as well.
Yeah.
So one of the other notes that I put on here, this isn't an explicit feature, and yet I suppose it is I really love the sound design that was on display in the preview demos. There's a lot more impact and audio-related goodness. It just makes hearing the sounds give a good feeling, like a tingle when you listen to it. For example, the TNT crates, when they explode, there is an audible like impact, like a paff or a bang at the beginning of the sounds. It just makes it feel like there is a violent explosion going on.
Yeah, not just the sound design, not just the sound design as far as sound effects go, but also I'm a lot more pleased with the music than I was expecting. Not that I've disliked the PS3 era music, but there was just something about the PS2 music that I found to be superior.
Yeah, and I think it does feel like Bros is mixing in a bunch of techno. The music for the fitness course, for example, when that segment started on Polygon, I thought they had chucked the Groovatron and cut it out. It was the actual in-game music for the fitness course. It was very funky and techno.
Yeah, and I listened to the music on Iridia, and I really liked it. It was sort of ambient techno-y, but still orchestral, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. Okay, so the next thing I'm sending Division 10 is a clip of music. This music plays when Ratchet is going through what is effectively the remake of the original Metropolis route as you make your way to Big Owl and the train station.
Give me a moment. I'm getting a very sort of overarching, heroic sound from this.
Yeah, for me it feels like in spirit it is an extended version of the music clip called Hero's Return from Into the Nexus, the one that plays when you first arrive on Igliak.
Yeah, when you're about to go in the museum.
Yeah, it feels thematically and in terms of mood very, very similar to that, except now it plays for not just a walk up to a museum, but an entire section of the level. And in that sense, I think it is most likely a reprisal of the main theme for the game that has been written by Michael Bross, because it feels very similar in the sense that it is basically a short series of notes repeated over and over again.
Yeah, except that you have that whole orchestral backing on top of that, which, even though if you listen to it closely, it's a very short riff repeated, it feels epic.
Yeah, and very heroic. It could almost be the theme for the Rangers themselves, because this, of course, is after Quark has inducted Ratchet into the Rangers, and now he's making his way through. At this stage, Ratchet is now a Ranger. So I'm very excited to hear the music in other parts of the game, what other bits that I'll fall in love with.
Yeah, so I don't really have that much else to talk about the music so far, only because I've only heard a very limited sample of tracks.
Yeah.
But
on to the last subject.
Yeah, we've got one subject left, and that's something that I had mentioned. I mentioned this way back when we were playing PSX, and we figured, oh, this is probably just because I'm playing with welding gloves on. But the game is actually pretty hard, and running out of ammo is a real problem. And I'm super appreciative of that. So it wasn't just me.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I was able to handle it fairly well because I've played Ratchet and Clank for so long and so often that ammo conserving techniques and what weapon to best use in any given scenario is important and second nature to me. So, for example, Porositor on small guys, rocket launcher on big guys, that sort of thing. But if you don't use your weapons properly and as efficiently as possible, then you'll run into ammo problems, and that will make the game pretty difficult, because on multiple playthroughs, especially GameSpots, they had issues trying to get through sections of the game because they were just plain running out of ammo because the enemies took so many shots to kill.
Yeah, and I remember having that problem at PSX, and then the second time around when I played the demo, the same level of Pokitaru, and I was a little bit more familiar with, there were multiple, I can never call them correctly,
Telepathopus?
The long and short of it is I was a little bit more familiar with the level the second time around, and even though I was still wearing the head and gloves, I could do it. Barely. It was a challenge, and I'm really happy about that. And for those who like to just play the games to just enjoy and want sort of just a relaxing shoot 'em up, play on easy. There's no shame in playing on an easier mode. But the challenge...
Yeah, I tend to play on easier because it is more enjoyable, but thanks to the new options, I will turn auto aim off so that there's still, some amount of skill required to actually land your hits.
Yeah, so the fact that they're able to sort of modulate that, so on easy mode, that's automatically turned on, but you can still switch them on and off, that there are individual constraints, and also the way the camera moves is independent of your level, is really, really nice.
Yeah, I would also imagine that the PS4 game will have some Internet Nexus style difficulty adjustments. So for example, the higher the difficulty level on Internet Nexus you're playing, not only do hits deal more damage, but enemies move faster, attack faster, and if they fire any laser shots, they will travel quicker. So that would make the difficulty not just harder, but also more dynamic and unexpected. You will literally need to up your game rather than just be more cautious.
Which is pretty awesome.
I think the best example of this difficulty wall that the journalist came into is with the amoeboids in Rilgar. We're all familiar that each amoeboid will take one shot to kill and put it into its next form and divide it into two. When GameSpot was playing through it, and Polygon, it took 5 combustor shots to do the same thing.
Wow.
Yeah, so lots of ammo needed for those guys on the difficulty that they were playing. So I guess that about wraps it up for this particular episode of the Lunar Observer, because now we've covered everything.
Yeah, I think we've covered I would agree. We've pretty much walked through everything that the videos have shown us, as well as told you a little bit about some of the news articles. You can check out all of those news articles on Insomniac's site. They link to pretty much all the major ones.
Yeah. Or at least all the ones they liked.
I've got nothing more to say, but we'll have... Oh, yes, actually, I do have one more thing to say. Remember in episode 12 where we discussed that there was a streamer who, the week of the March 14th through March 21st was going to be streaming all of the Ratchet & Clank games for charity? Well, you can check it out right now. It's going through March 21st. He did Tools of Destruction yesterday, and I believe today he's doing a Crack in Time.
Okay, well, considering the amount of time it takes for me to get these episodes out, that information might not be correct. Especially if someone's archive binging and it's actually 2029.
This is true, but we'll have this video out before the 21st, so you should catch the tail end of his stream and toss a couple bucks his way. It's going towards cancer charities, so yeah.
Yeah, cancer charities. It's going towards giving people cancer. What a great cause.
Yeah, I think that would be just slightly rude.
Yeah. I would also like to plug the in-depths. I know I've mentioned them several times, but I do actually spend a lot of time working on them, and they take much longer to make than the image galleries that I used to. So I would really appreciate it if you guys would actually go and check them out and leave comments and responses as to whether you would prefer the video format over the image gallery ones, because If it's not super amazing and cool, then I'll probably switch back to the image galleries. Otherwise, I'll be making in-depth videos until I've got a grey beard.
Yeah, so the videos are easier to talk it over because we're talking rather than typing, but they are much more difficult to edit. So
and actually assemble.
Yeah. So we'd like to hear from you guys how you'd rather see it. Would you rather see it as a video, or would you rather see it as a series of still images with captions?
Yeah, and where can you find those videos?
On the YouTubes, on our new, well, not new, we've had this YouTube channel for a while, but now we have all of our episodes up in YouTube format as well as MP4s, so if you want to have that running around on in the background,
then just search The Lunar Observer on YouTube and you'll find it. We also have a Tumblr which is lunarobserver.tumblr.com, and a Google Plus page, which I doubt it would be Google Plus /lunarobserverpodcast.com, but you would be able to search that and get us up pretty quickly there as well.
Yes, you would. So, also, if you need a quick hello, we've got a question for you, you can hit me up on Twitter. I'm Division10, the same as everywhere else. DIVISIONTEN, all letters, all lowercase. And we hope to hear from you, and we'll be back once there's more Ratchet and Clank news. So go check out that stream. It's running through the 21st, and then on April 15th, you can check out our stream for Child's Play.
Yeah, you can also ask a question by leaving it in the comments section, of course.
Yes. So with that in mind, that's all the news that's fit to print or fit to YouTube?
Chat about. Yes.
That's YouTube to YouTube. And I'm Division 10.
And we'll see you next time.
We'll see you next time.